Welcome to Becoming Fearless, the personal growth podcast for you if you are ready to overcome fear and step into your greatness. Our purpose is to help you overcome your limits, have loads of fun along the way, unlocking your fullest potential in life, business, health and relationships every single day. I'm your host, Charlotte Carter, a high-performance coach and entrepreneur with over 20 years experience. I've supported many highly driven, talented people like you who dream big and are ready to take action to overcome what's holding them back. Each week, my guests and I will be sharing hacks and habits on how to build self-belief, courage and confidence to master your mindset and navigate your emotions so that you can reach your human potential in a way that feels light, fun and easeful and helps you become fearless. Let's go. Welcome everybody to this next episode of Becoming Fearless. I am beyond excited. I know you'll probably hear me say this to every guest episode that we do, but this guy is absolutely magical. So this episode, if you are searching, this episode is going to be called How Our Past Informs Our Fears. So this guy is by far a specialist in shifting fears. We have worked together. He has blown my mind. And it gives me massive, great pleasure to introduce the wonderful Kyle Haskins. Kyle, let people know a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Awesome. Thank you. So great to be here. So I guess essentially I'm an energetic alignment coach, which really just means I work with people to find and release energy that's preventing them from being in alignment with their goals, their dreams, their aspirations. And at the core of that, I'm a clairvoyant and I'm an energy healer. And so essentially I work with people to find and release trapped energy from their past. And this trapped energy could be in the form of beliefs, past experiences, conditioning and structural programming that's handed down to them from previous generations or from their parents, and really just the accumulation of their life's experiences, which at a subconscious level is silently and unknowingly dictating the course of their life. And whether we realize it or not, all of the things from our past are influencing what we do on a day-to-day basis. And because our subconscious has this deep protective nature, it wants to protect us from repeating past hurts, past pains, or even just the things that we've come to believe are bad because of other people's viewpoints. And so I work with people at a deep energetic level as well as on a conscious level to unwind these past constructs, to clear this past energy and really open up the space for them to choose who they want to be now without the overriding power of their subconscious trying to direct them in a different way.
And when Kyle says about, he just rewinds, it's not even this lifetime. It's like way back. When Kyle and I worked together, we went way back. Not just my life, not just like what you could get in your head, way back, much further. And the work that he does just changes how you feel on so many levels. So Becoming Fearless was something that I spoke about Kyle when we were working together. And we were working about my personal blocks around fear, relationship stuff and things like that everybody has when they're an entrepreneur, relationships with money, with the business, with all sorts of things. And also this whole my relationship with the business and where I was going. And Becoming Fearless was one of the things that we talked about. This podcast was one of the things we talked about. We talked about how aligned I was to kind of helping the masses. And thank goodness Cal said, yeah, I am aligned to helping the masses, because that's kind of where the podcast came from. And we brought it to this space. So I'm excited to dig into this. Let's just rewind back in your life as to who you were before you were doing what you do now. What's kind of the snapshot? Because I know that this is like your second career, shall we say?
It is my second career. Yeah, I guess it's interesting. I grew up under the conditioning that everyone else does, go to school, get a good education, go get a job and kind of work that job until you're 65. But right through my life, I always knew that I wanted something different and I knew that I wanted to help people. But I suppressed a lot of that. So I grew up in South Africa, and for those of you who know or don't know, South Africa is a very divided country, and it's divided for lots of different reasons. There's lots of racial divide that divides people. There's lots of religious divide. People are divided by status, by money. It really is a country that has a lot of division. And growing up, that was something I really struggled with, because at my core, I had this feeling and this knowing that we should have this life of unity where everybody sort of loves everyone and accepts everyone else, but I didn't see that around me. And so I struggled with that a lot as a kid. And I had these gifts, being clairvoyant and being able to see and feel and pick up on energy. But because of the way the world was, I didn't feel like I could bring them out. And I didn't feel that the world would be accepting of them. The world's very different now. But at that time, I really just landed up suppressing all of this stuff throughout my childhood, even though I grew up in a very open home where my mom, she's a Reiki master, a massage therapist, and a reflexologist. So I was around like very open parents who would allow me to think and believe and do whatever I wanted. But it was the outside world that I didn't feel like I could be that in, because it was threatening or dangerous or unsafe. And so essentially, I followed the path that really was a big thing in my family, and I went into IT. So I went into IT, and specifically I went into sales. I worked with data centers and selling hardware into, server rooms and storage. And then eventually, when I moved over to New Zealand, when I was 27, I moved into the software space, working with Microsoft and selling, Microsoft solutions into businesses. So right through my career for 12 years, I was in this IT space. But all along the way, people would just come to me and talk to me. They would tell me about their life's problems, and they would kind of it was like I was an open space, and they go, you know who I want to go talk to about this stuff? It's Kyle. And I wanted to help them. So I set myself this idea that whenever someone came to speak to me, I would make sure that they felt better leaving than they did when they showed up. And that was my one goal. Whatever I did, whether I just held space and listened, or whether there was an opportunity for me to, share something that might help them, that was my focus. Just help people feel better. And through that space, I did lots of different things. So, early on, I was very into exercise and nutrition. And so I was a personal trainer. I became a CrossFit coach. I did a diploma in sports nutrition. I studied to be a life coach. And then I did animal acupuncture because I had a Labrador who was getting old and I wanted to help him. So I was working more with meridians and energy. And that was around the time when I moved to New Zealand, was when I found the Emotion Code. So that was a book that I read. So the Emotion Code's a book by Dr. Bradley Nelson. And that really changed my life, because it kind of brought together everything that I already understood, but in such a cohesive way, because it was focused on releasing trapped emotions from the past. And then I just went with that. I worked with that on myself. I saw massive changes, shared the book with my mom. She saw changes, and I kind of parked it for a couple of years. But then when I was doing animal acupuncture, my mom sent me a video of someone doing the emotion code on animals. And I was like, oh, wow, like imagine if we could release these emotions from animals. Because one of the big things with acupuncture in animals specifically is you're working on releasing trapped energy from specific channels, the spleen and the lungs and, the heart, etc. And I thought if I could just get to the core of that, that would change everything. So I did the certification actually to help animals. But in part of my certification, I had to do a portfolio of clients, and I worked with people. And that was the predominant work, was working with people. I only had to do a small amount of animals, and the shifts were just unbelievable. And it was at that point that I was like, there's no way that I could ignore this. There's no way that I could just ignore the people, because a lot of the time when animals have problems, it's actually people problems, because they're taking on a lot of the emotions from their owners, and, they're trying to help people process their energy, because animals are pretty neutral. And that was kind of where it all went. And so, yes, this is my second career that I'm in now, but it's something that I've always known I wanted to do, something that I always felt. And like I said, something that I suppressed for a lot of my life. And then when I went into this, it really was a process for me of unwinding and, releasing all of those blocks that I had created for myself that were blocking my intuition, that were blocking my ability to help people, to show up online, all of those things. So I did the work for myself as well as doing the work for my clients.
And such a fascinating story, because I know we touched on that whole kind of like positioning and visibility and understanding who you are in this world. And so much of the work that you and I did together was about me remembering my brilliance really on so many levels, and you clearing all of the unwanted baggage that I had energetically from myself, from my beliefs, from other people, from lifetimes ago, and then allowing me to really open up to remembering who I always knew I was. And my journey is very similar in terms of that inner knowing. But one of the things that I think Kyle's excellent at is his intuitive ability is like off the scale. So let's go deeper into some of this, like how the past informs our fear. So I want to talk, a lot of the people that are in my world and a lot of the people that follow me understand like my journey, and there's a lot around this whole piece around belonging. So you've squashed yourself, like my journey, I squashed my energy, I was in the people pleaser place, and I was in that, I'm going to be too much. I just want to try and fit in. And I was searching externally for my belonging place. What would you say to people who are listening to that and thinking, oh my God, that's me. I'm still searching outside of myself for this like identity of knowing who I am. What would you kind of say in terms of where they can start to unravel and remember who they really are?
A powerful place is to look at your childhood, because even though we all carry a lot of energy at a soul level, and this is coming to the past life stuff, nobody comes into this life with a blank slate. We come in with our own stuff at a soul level that we've carried from past lives, which cause us to have a predisposition to see the world a particular way, to feel particular things. But then we also get a whole bunch of energy from our parents and our ancestors that's handed down. We get inherited emotions and energy that might come from many generations back, which is there in our DNA to help us survive. If someone in previous generations experienced something really dangerous, like we need to have that remembrance so that we don't experience the same thing and we avoid it. But we also absorb energy in the womb, so we get all this different energy, and we're not a blank slate when we start life. But our childhood really informs a lot of who we are. And I really think, and I'm a new parent, I've got a son who's just about to turn 2. Children come in so open and so free, so authentically themselves. And that authenticity might involve some energy from their past that caused them to have certain personality traits. But essentially, they're just free. Like, they don't think about judgment. They don't think about rejection. Like, I watch my son run around. There's no fear, right? Like, he's not like walking over to a spider going, oh, I should be really worried. He's just like, oh, spider, I'll pick up the spider. There's like none of that fear exists. But we get conditioned into a lot of those fears by our parents, by our family, by our society, by our culture. And because we're in the first 7 to 8 years of our life, we're in this absorption stage where we haven't yet developed the part of our brain that does conscious logic and reasoning. We're kind of fully in our subconscious, and our subconscious is just trying to absorb everything in the world around us from everyone else to figure out what's safe and what's not safe. And so we take on a lot of faulty programming. We take on programming based on other people's experiences, other people's fears, other people's life stuff. And they do it out of love because they want to protect us, and they don't want us to experience what they experience or go through what they went through. But it really blocks us. One of the things, again, just coming back to being a dad, that I'm really conscious of with my son is to not say careful, because he needs to learn, right? And he'll learn those things on his own. And some of the things that I might want to be careful about, he might not need to be careful about, because it could be a completely different experience for him. So instead, I'll be saying things like, do you know where your footing is? Or are you sure that you're stable where you're standing? Rather than taking this fear-based approach, it's taking the openness approach of like awareness. And so if you're being held back by fear, a really great place to start looking is your childhood. Like, what was it like in your life growing up? What did your parents want from you? What did they allow? What did they not allow? What did your family and your friends and your society, what did they allow and what did they not allow? Because whether you realize it or not, you would have taken that on as subconscious programming to say, don't do these things, don't show up this way. And because we're in this open absorption stage when we're kids, we take this on without any question. So, when we work together, we work on lots of different things, right, Charlotte? We've worked on money and business and relationships and all of those things. But even when I looked at this for myself and I looked at the money story, like, I just looked back to my childhood and I went, what were the things I heard about money when I was a kid, right? It was things like money doesn't grow on trees, or money's the root of all evil, or, oh, those people have lots of money, they've probably done something dodgy for it. And those things all create fears, because as we start to want to step into this expansive nature, the magnificence of who we are, and achieve these incredible goals or these aspirations, the parts of us that remember that stuff, that remember the judgment from our parents or family or society, etc., hold us back. because we think, I'm going to go and get this thing and I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to make oodles of money. And there's the part of the subconscious that goes, but people are going to think that we've done something dodgy for it, or money's the root of all evil, so we don't want that because that's a bad thing. We don't want to be evil. And so we have all of these underlying layers that, without even realizing it, are holding us back. And essentially, they all hold us back because there are feelings linked to them. Right? If when we're children, our parents say something to us and we feel nothing about it, it's not going to stick and it's not going to affect us. But in a moment where our parents go, be careful, that thing's so dangerous, and we go, and we take that deep breath in and we go, oh my gosh, this is so dangerous, we feel something, and our subconscious then goes, oh yeah, that definitely must be dangerous because there's all of these feelings about it. And so it programs and locks that in. But if our parents said, be careful, that's dangerous, and we're like, whatever, and we just carried on and did it, we wouldn't necessarily take that on. So we become who we become because we change and adapt ourselves to fit the world around us, because we want to be loved, because we want to be accepted. You know, at the core of every fear, I believe, is the fear of not being loved. And we adapt ourselves to be a certain way so that the people around us like us and they love us and they want us to be around. And so they say, do this, and we do that. And they say, change this way, and we change that way. And so to become powerful, it's about recognizing that the power of who you are, the magnificence of who you are, is within you, but you've had a lifetime of believing it's outside of you. And so you just got to start to unwind and take that back.
Isn't Kyle just like a font of knowledge, guys? I want to talk about some of the work because I'm an open book in this podcast, and I've been open about things that I've worked through in terms of fear. So fear of rejection has been like a story of my life that I didn't necessarily realize until I stepped into entrepreneurship that it was there. And then one of the interesting fears that Kyle and I worked on, which I am quite happy to talk about, which was quite fascinating, which was the fear of being famous. So this was near the end of the work that we did. We've done a lot of work on lots of things: fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough, fear of belonging, lots and lots of sort of what I would call that most people will encounter in their personal growth. But then this one came up and it was like this fear of being famous. And I was like, well, I don't know if I really have that. And I was a little bit like, I'm not sure about that. And then when we started getting deeper in it, it was like, oh yeah, because this particular thing happened to this particular person who was famous, and they changed who they were when they got more famous. And it was the classic work that Kyle helped me work on, all of the past stuff, but then it was also the futuristic habits that I could bring in to be able to ensure that actually, as I grow and as the brand grows and as the business grows, I still stay rooted in who I am and what I'm here to do. And so the work that we did then was more about who are you inspired by and who are the people that are famous in your world that you can really look up to because they have certain values and traits and strengths that really help you understand who you are. And I think that's a massive combination of the work that you do. It's like clearing the past weight of energy and emotions that has held you back, and providing those habits and tools and techniques to move you forward. But that was quite an interesting one, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, that would have been something that you didn't experience. You know, you didn't experience being famous and go, oh, this is a bad thing, I shouldn't be famous. You watched people around you become famous. And then you watch the impact of that as they disconnected from their family and the pain that everyone else experienced as a result of becoming famous. And your subconscious took all of that in and went, oh, that's a really bad idea. Look at all of these things. And what happens in these situations is you're empathic. You know, you feel what other people are feeling, and everybody is an empath, whether we recognize it or not. We feel other people's stuff. And it's the way that we figure out how the world works. Because we're not going to be able to experience everything. But when we see other people experience things, if we feel what they're feeling, we can take that on. And that's exactly what happened for you, right? Is you saw someone become famous, you saw the impact to them and their family and their friends, and you saw what everyone else felt about them becoming famous. You felt it too, and you went, that's not a good thing. And we often do this in our life where we make these, they're called vows, right? Where we make these unconscious vows energetically where we promise ourselves that we're never going to do that thing. we promise ourselves that we're not going to become that because we've seen the pain and suffering. And I had a perfect example of this with my partner. She wanted to get married, and I had decided that marriage was not a thing for me. I didn't believe in the concept. And some of that came from my parents' divorce when I was 16. But when I really dug into it, when I was 21, I was working in the corporate world, and I saw lots of people around me being unfaithful. And it was at that point when I thought about like the impact on their families and how their partners must feel. And I saw all of that. I decided and made a vow to myself that I was never going to get married because it was this false concept. And so when it came time to get married with my wife, I had to really work through that. And when I went back, I was like, where does this come from? And I was like, oh, that's where. Right, so I didn't experience the unfaithfulness. I wasn't in a marriage where it happened, but I watched other people around me do it, and I felt what they might be feeling, and then I decided that's a bad idea. And so I made this unconscious vow to never get married. And that held me back. And we all do this when we watch other people's stuff. Because we go, I never want that to happen to me. I never want to be that person. And we feel a lot of energy in that moment. We have a lot of emotions linked to that. And that locks in our subconscious. And our subconscious goes, cool. Yeah, that looks like a bad idea. Let's not do that. But then we forget about it. And we move on with life. And then it's like, let's go get married. And suddenly there's this pit in our stomach like, bad idea, don't do that, don't get married. This is like, and we get all of these thoughts in our mind, like, what if it ends? What if this happens? So the ego starts to create all of these protective thoughts. And it's all based on this past evidence that's mostly false, not even our own experience, but that we've accepted and taken in because we felt something at that time.
And are you happily married?
And that's what it was
now?
For you. Yes, I am happily married.
Yes,
I know I had to do a lot of work to get to that place of feeling peaceful about it.
Yeah.
Like, I just kind of believe that marriage didn't change the idea of commitment. That's what that experience had kind of taught me, was that being married doesn't equal commitment.
Yeah.
And so for me, in our relationship, it was like, I'm committed to you, but I don't need the marriage to do it. But that was because there was this block. And so when I recognized how important it was to my wife, I was like, okay, I need to figure this out. I need to figure out what's holding me back on this. And so just as I do with my clients, I tapped into my energy and I started working. And where does it come from? And that's what I found. And as soon as I cleared that, I felt so different about it, right? I went and I got an engagement ring and I planned to propose. And it was just because there was that energy that was holding me back. It was creating all of this fear inside of me. And most of that energy was not even my own experience.
And I think that is such a great example, because so many people that I work with, they come into my world, well, probably in your world as well, they come in and they're massively overwhelmed. And actually only a certain amount of what's going on for them is actually their stuff, because they've picked up stuff from other people, experiences, emotions, patterns, and they are kind of like a little bit lost in who they really are. And that's kind of the work that I do in remembering and getting them to remember who they are. So I love those examples. Let me know a little bit about how you help people move through, like, where they're going, because I know you and I have done that. But when you've cleared all the fear for people that's held them back, and all of the beliefs and all of the energy blocks and everything emotionally, and they're this new version of themselves, which, believe me, some of the work that Kyle and I did, I was like, I felt completely different. Where do the people go then? Like, where's that next piece? Because I know you gave me lots of tips and tools as to how to move through some of the mind having to catch up with some of the changes that you and I had done.
Yeah, and this is really where I believe the most powerful combination is the deep layers of energetic clearing, but you have to have the conscious element. You have to have that conscious setting of where are we going and why, like how are my values attached to the outcome that I want. And this is such a powerful and important thing, is we have to make that strong positive attachment to that future version of ourselves, because that's what's going to drive us forward. So from a conscious perspective, we have a tendency to drive ourselves from negative things. We have a tendency to focus on the unwanted and take all of that energy of the anger or the shame or the feeling unworthy and go like, I'm so fed up with that. Now I'm going to go do these things. But it's not a powerful energy source, because when I look at emotions, I don't see them as positive or negative. I see them all as a beautiful part of our experience. But the way I do differentiate emotions is low vibration and high vibration. And so low vibration emotions, I mean, the lowest vibration of all is shame. But then if you look on the high end of the scale, you've got love and peace and bliss. So as a power source, if you were to think of emotions as like a battery, like how long that battery is going to last, how much power it has, the low vibration emotions have considerably less energy. The high vibration emotions have so much. So what happens is when we've worked on all the past stuff and we kind of arrive at this state where we feel neutral. And this is often something that comes up when I'm working with people. It's like, how do you feel about that thing? And there's a space of neutrality. And that's because you're no longer impacted by the energy of your past. And I just want to be clear here. We can never clear all of the past energy, right? Like that would be a lifetime worth of work because there's so much. But we don't need to clear all of it. We just have to clear enough of it to be able to create change. We just have to clear enough of it where it's no longer holding us back and where the evidence that's there in our past isn't creating a reaction in us physically, mentally, or emotionally. And this is when we arrive at that space of neutrality. And when we do, then it's a whole lot easier to consciously go after the things that we want. But the most important thing there is the positive driver to get us there. And so that's the attachment to what it is that we want at the end. Why? What are we going to feel when we get there? How does that align to our values? How does that connect to who we are, who we want to be, the impact we want to have on the world? And then to use that to chart the path of all of the little steps that we need to take, and to focus on the feeling at the end and find ways to feel it all the way along. Because what we also tend to do is we tend to go, I'll be happy when I get there, when I have this, when I achieve this thing, then I'll feel blissful, then I'll feel amazing, then I'll feel joyful. And as someone who was in sales for a large portion of my career, I can tell you that those moments of success and happiness are fleeting. Because when you get there, it's like, oh wow, I'm here. And it's like, okay, now what? Oh, now on to the next thing. And so it's like, now I need to chase this other thing. And we get into this unconscious process of chasing, constantly moving. So the conscious is so important, connecting to the future you, the values, the powerful connection to that, and then charting your course to that. And because we're energy and everything is energy, the more that we sit in the energy of those things, the future realization of where we want to be, the feeling of being there, and we sit in that now, we get access to certain thoughts. We get access to certain energies that help us inform our current actions. And I'm sure everyone's had this experience where you like feel anger. You wake up, like let's say the typical saying, I wake up on the wrong side of the bed. And as you move through your day, whatever emotion you've woken up with and you kind of gotten stuck in, you just see more of that everywhere around you. You remember all of the memories in your past where someone made you angry or someone betrayed you, and it's like all of that is flowing through your mind. And it's because every emotion, every memory that's stored with a particular emotion exists at a certain frequency. So when we're in that frequency of anger, we get access to all of those memories that vibrate at that same frequency. But when we step into that frequency of joy, of expansiveness, of happiness, of excitement, of the fulfillment or our passion, we suddenly get access to different thoughts, different memories, different times where we felt those things. And that helps inform what we're doing now. And make no mistake, conscious action is like the number one thing that we need to do to move forward. But the energy that we have behind that is more important than the action itself. Like if we take action from a low vibration emotion, the anger or the sadness, it might push us now, but as soon as we come up against a block, we'll immediately go back into those low vibration emotions. But if we're in a higher vibration emotion, it's a whole lot easier to transcend that block, to see the way over it than to get stuck there.
So that kind of ties in with the way that I talk with people in terms of how you want to feel. So the first thing is, how good can I feel? And I know Kyle and I always talked about, what I was promoting in the business or what I was doing next. And it was always about get yourself in a good feeling state and then take the action. Get yourself feeling good, whatever it is, all the things that I talk about. But make sure that you do that when you are ready to put something out in the world, because you will have all had those experiences, I'm sure, where you put something out and you're feeling flat or your head's not in it, your mind's elsewhere, and then it absolutely just shows you a mirror of it by everything being flat, nobody's liked it, nothing's happened, and you feel even worse. when you get yourself in a place like you feeling super excited about stuff and super alive, then you resonate that energy in whatever it is that you put out. That's so, so crucial for people listening. Get yourself into the highest energy state that you can get into without making it false. Get into what you can feel comfortable in, which is part of your mannerisms, the way you are and how you manage your emotions yourself. So for me, it's quite easy for me to get in super high excited because that's a natural pattern for me. And then from that space and place is where you go and do the things that you want to do to create the change in your life. So it has
Absolutely.
been epic talking with you. Let's just round out by two questions. First of all, can you let people know how they can get hold of you if they want to work with you, find out more? What's the best way for them to get hold of you?
Beautiful. So my website, www.healconnectthrive.com, or on Instagram, I'm at heal.connect.thrive, or on Facebook, Heal Connect Thrive. Those are the best ways to get hold of me. My website is usually the best way. It's got all the testimonials and, all of the different booking links if that's what people wanted to look for.
And then I'll just tell you a quick story about Kyle and I. So the fabulous Emma Louise, who's helped me get this podcast out, introduced me to Kyle. And I went onto his website and I found this program that was massively hidden, that was just somehow beneath these other pages. And it was just like, I don't know how. It's the whole thing about energy and how it works, because it's like, I messaged you and I said, I'd just like to do this thing. He's like, well, how have you found that? I was like, I don't quite know. It's somewhere hidden on your website. So there's lots of options. You can work with Kyle in lots of different ways. I massively recommend it. It totally changed where I was in that stage in my life when we worked together. And then the final question that I ask everybody, which is for people to go and have like a little look at, which is what book or books have changed how you think and feel about yourself or are related to becoming fearless in your journey of your life so far?
So there are so many books that have had a huge impact on my life. But if I was to single out one book, which is a book that I often share with people, it's The Vortex by Jerry and Esther Hicks, or Abraham Hicks. And it's all about relationships and our energy in relationships and the law of attraction and how what we put out brings things back to us, how what we're expecting is what we get. And this aligns so much with what we just spoke about, Charlotte, that the energy behind your action is the most important thing, because when we're in that energetic space and we take action, we get different results than if we're feeling flat and defeated, etc. And we then go like, I feel so flat, but I should just do this thing anyway. The result is that we get something else that causes us to be flat and defeated. So The Vortex is the most beautiful book, I reckon, for just understanding relationships, not just personal, but business and every type of relationship, because everything that we have in life is a relationship. You and I, we had a business relationship the way we worked in these things, but we have relationships with food, we have relationships with TV, we have relationships with ourselves.
Money.
Everything is a relationship. Money, all of those things, it's a relationship. So understanding how that energy impacts the relationship is so powerful. So whether you're a personal, just an individual moving through your life, or whether you're an entrepreneur or business owner, The Vortex is probably the book that helped me the most, is understanding those concepts and going, this is why I'm getting what I'm getting in this relationship and in this relationship. And it allows you to take your power back, because it's like, it's about me. And make no mistake, this is so uncomfortable when you realize that the things that you're getting in your life, you've created most of the time unconsciously, being unaware. But it's at that point that you go, well, now I can start to change it. And so I can slowly start to take that power back and bring it within, and then actually become the creator of my own life.
And I love that. We haven't had that book yet, so I'm excited about that. And that's ultimately leads us into becoming fearless, because I think when people can get into a place where they can manage their emotions, they can get themselves in that high state, and then they can understand how fear showed a part in how they show up, and work with people like yourself to be able to clear stuff, to create the space to be able to step into their greatness, then that's where they really do become fearless. So I have absolutely loved chatting with you. Go and follow him, guys. He is epic. And this episode is going to be for those people that really love the deep conversations that I bring to this podcast. Thank you so much. I massively appreciate your time.
been amazing being here.
Thank you for tuning into this week's episode. I hope that you're feeling energized, fearless, and inspired to take action today to stand in your greatness. I share even more tools and resources on my I Dare to Leap email newsletter. By signing up, you not only get early access to the I Dare to Leap products and services, but you also get brand new podcast episodes delivered straight to your inbox every Monday, meaning you'll never miss your weekly dose of becoming fearless energy. Sign up now at www.idaretoleap.com/newsletter or click the link in the show notes below.